Here we go. Very quickly, so CABI is the Center for Agriculture and Bioscience International, as many people do know that. Our mission is how to lose less and feed more on any crops. We are not for profit organization, and we help people to improve their lives by providing information and scientific expertise. CABI addresses all the global issues that concerns food and information through science and information and communication. Not only, of course, food, but also environment, health, public health, and also veterinary studies and animal health. So we've been established in 1910 by a United Treaty, as I said, agriculture and environment, all their derivatives. We are owned by 49 countries and we are spread over 23 locations now worldwide. Please look into CIDEVNet, it's part of CABI, and it's, we call it the journalism arm that help communication for scientists and journalists about science. These are the member countries. As you could see, there are countries from the and developing world. We have three main divisions: the microbial services, the publishing, which we are talking about it now, and international development and research, where we work on specific projects that we like plant-wise. Please, as I mentioned before, go and visit it. It's quite interesting. And we have many other programs, part of our international development and research. We work with many donors to help farmers and Ministry of Agriculture around the world to help their structure and infrastructure for agriculture. Jumping quickly to publishing, we publish a variety of content like books, ebooks, compendium, online resources, etc. And 83% of our content is journals. We have conference proceeding, great literature like reports, books and ebooks, and some thesis and symposiums. The main subjects that we cover is animal sciences, animal sciences, plant sciences, forestry, aquatic sciences, environmental sciences, food sciences, human sciences, and tourism. Going quickly into what we say by animal science, dairy science, animal breeding, animal nutrition, etc. And then plant sciences, we have horticulture, crops, plant breeding, plant nutrition, and many other subjects that are covered within these main big subjects. Forestry and forest trees, forest plant and diseases, etc. Aquatic sciences, fishery, aquatic animals, aquaculture animals, and aquaculture plants. Environmental sciences, as you could see, soil, water conservation, biofuels, wetlands, etc. Food sciences, food composition and quality, food chemistry, food safety, diet studies and obesity. Human sciences, and then tourism. So I talk about ecotourism and support sustainable tourism. And then the one before last, where we get the content from. So you could see 46% comes from Europe and North America, and the rest comes from different parts of the world. So please, if you have any question about the introduction of CABI, please write it at the side and I will try to answer. I'll leave it with you, Dr. Said, to start the third part, and it would be nice if you can just go for 5 minutes to refresh what the last two sessions to make the link so that people do remember what we did before.
I appreciate it, Ibrahim.
How about you?
So, thank you everybody for joining us for this third session. I hope you will enjoy this round two. We had during the two previous sessions, we talked about the first steps of this journey, And today we are gonna talk about the end of the journey, where we take this back home. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Okay, welcome back for those who were with us in the previous two sessions, and welcome to those who are joining us for the first time today. As we all expect, we are navigating together the journey of international publication. For this journey, we're going to share some insights on how to best make it through this journey, especially for those who are early career scientists or maybe PhD and master students. I hope sharing some insights and some of the pitfalls that we've been through might help them, avoid them, so they could learn from our mistakes instead of learning from their own, or instead of making their own. In the first session, we talked about the motivations. Why do we publish? And we will revisit this later again today. We talked about how to best select the research point and how to best select the journal that you intend to publish in, and why it is important to take that decision early on, so you could save yourself your valuable time while writing. Last session was devoted entirely for writing the manuscript from A to Z. We broke it down into smaller pieces or smaller steps, if we may. And we talked about how approaching each of those steps individually helps you keep climbing that mountain without getting frustrated. We shared some insight on each part and how it would be best written. And we finished last session with a manuscript that is ready for submission. So today we're gonna talk about the next three steps, the submission itself, and then navigating the peer review process and delivering the impact, which is the objectives that you initially started with to motivate you to publish. So starting with submission, what makes a successful submission? What do we need to do while submitting our manuscript? We're going to share some advices on this in this regard. And one of the first one we already came across, and it's very important. That's why we're going to revisit it again. We need to adhere to the journal's guidelines for submission. And this is very simple step. All what you need to do is to go to the journal's website. And as we did last time, we took the CABI Agriculture and Bioscience Journal, which is an open access journal that CABI is launching. And when you go to the website, it's very easy and clear there. You get the journal's guidelines. So it's there, so you could see it, navigate it. You will get some detailed idea about what exactly you should do to submit your manuscript appropriately. It will give you a lot of details that are directly to the point. We're not going to repeat the navigation of this again this time, just to save your time, and especially for those who were with us last time. But for those who are with us here for the first time, or if this is your first time to hear from people on this topic, probably would be nice if you just go to CABI and then navigate to CABI Agriculture Biosciences, and then just take the submission guidelines. Most journals allow you to submit a cover letter for your manuscript, and this is some people elect not to, which is fine, as long as you don't have any other information that you need to convey to the editor. But if you do, if you have information that you have no way of conveying to the editor, other than writing a cover letter, probably you should write a cover letter. The cover letter should be precise and concise. You don't have to tell the whole story. You just need to focus on why this your manuscript should be considered for the journal. And basically what you're trying to do with the cover letter is you're trying to avoid the disk rejections, which is you're trying to show the editor that it is relevant, it is in the scope of the journal, and most importantly, if your research received any awards, or if this is a student research paper, or maybe you submitted a twin paper previously and you want to let the editor know, the editors know that you already submit the first twin manuscript and this is the second one, so they have the first one published in their journal. These kind of things are the things that you should put there. And actually the editors recommend that. And I was participating in a conference, and one of the journals checked all the 600 posters presented in that conference, and they decided to select like top 6 posters that really interest them. And they gave some prizes there, and I was lucky to be one of the selected ones. And the editor stopped by and she said, you know, this is a very good research. We would love to publish it in our journal, but please, in your cover letter, indicate that this was a winner, a poster award winner research. Just to bring this in mind, I have some reviewers in mind, and by mentioning that, you're going to help me accelerate the process and bring it back to my memory. So this is a good thing to do, especially if you have any of these reasons. And if not, at least, you know, thank the editor for their help and for their efforts that they spend on the journal. But make sure to be precise and concise. Don't write a whole page. Just, you know, a couple of paragraphs will be enough. Again, as we said, with the cover letter, you're trying to avoid the disk rejections. There are other things too that you can do to avoid disk rejections. Disk rejections are, you know, first decision rejections from the editor, so they don't make it to the next step. So maybe the editor looks at the journal and find that you're submitting a research paper to a review or maybe you're submitting a method paper to a research method. So I think, I wonder if you guys could kindly mute your microphones, because I'm hearing someone talking, and this is a little bit distracting. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help. So you would like to avoid this type of lazy rejections, and I hope we are convinced by now that we need to do better than this. We should be sure where to submit, and we submit to a journal that we wrote the manuscript especially for. And also, you would like to make sure that your topic is within the scope of the journal. You don't want to waste like a month of your time or a couple of weeks of your time with your manuscript sitting on the editor's desk, waiting for the editor to take a look at it and then send you an email back saying that, sorry, you know, this is not within the scope of our journal. Also, we need to make sure that we use we upload the appropriate the files in the appropriate format. And as we said previously, if there is a template for the text file, you should use it. You should use it. Save yourself time and save others time, and use it. Also, make sure that the figure files are prepared appropriately in terms of size of the figures, the resolutions, the file type, if they want them in a separate file or at the end of the manuscript with caption or without caption. Edit editable, they could edit or not. So you should make sure that the figure file or the supplementary data file should be in the appropriate format. The other thing too is, and I think probably this should have been covered previously, which is make sure that you have the appropriate ethics approvals, especially if you have human subjects in your research study. And in some cases, probably the human subject training is required. So make sure before when you select the research point that you are qualified, you have received the appropriate training to run such a research, and also make sure that you have an approval that is documented. You cannot go with verbal approvals. It has to be documented. It should come from the appropriate authority. So it should come from the authority that approves research in the place where the research is conducted. So like authorization from a different place is not going to help in this case. And for sure, it has to be acquired before the study started. So you can just finish the study and then try to achieve or to acquire the approval later. Especially with you indicating these details in your material and methods. So make sure that this part is covered, because this is not negotiable. This part will not be negotiated with you. If you have it, you're good to go. If you don't have it, you're screwed. So it's good to have that. And I think this point should be clear to you when you start when you select your research point. Also, if with the human subject being part of your study, you also need to have appropriate consents, again, prior to the study. The appropriate consents are for participation. So you need to have that consent before you start, before you study people. You need to have received their consent. Also, if you will publish any pictures or information or personal information that would reveal the identity of people, either personally or generally. Let's say if you're studying employees in a specific company, and make sure that you have their consent for publication, because these things are very critical, and they, with human subject being your research topic, it's very important to make sure that you're not harming people, and you're not doing something that you would not accept. Again, appropriate consents are not negotiable. You have to have them. So get yourself ready before you start. And the last piece of approvals you need also is the funding agency's approval. And some funding agencies, when you write the contract with them, when you sign the contract with them, they said that you need to have their approval for submission before you submit your manuscripts to the journals. And this is something that you don't want to forget, because your submission is time-stamped. So the paper, on the paper you will see when exactly it was received. And this is a date that you cannot change. This is a date that you cannot change unless you withdraw your submission and then I don't know, maybe resubmit it again. I don't know if that's feasible or not. But you cannot do that. Once the manuscript is submitted, it is time stamped, and you don't want to mess that up. So make sure that you fulfill that part too. The last thing is you either use your REBA account on the journal or the platform that is publishing the journal. And it's good to have to use the same account to make sure that your information is collected all together in the same place, and your history of submitting and reviewing are in the same place, because this is your effort that you want to benefit from. You want to be you want the editor to be familiar with you and know what your previous activities that you had or interactions that you had with the journals. And with that, it's the next steps are going to be just uploading and following the platform steps and uploading, and that differs from one journal to another. All of them starts with your basic information, then the author's names and affiliation, and gives you the chance to order them, and then it gives you a chance to link their information with their ORCID ID or Scopus ID or other types of scholar IDs that could be used to track their contribution. So, and then upload your files, your text files, your supplementary files, your that will make it that's going to be an easy route. It's you don't have too much time on that.
Hey,
Ibrahim, can you hear me?
yes.
Because Zoom is giving me some messages that there is a problem with the sound, so I just wanted to double check.
No, I can hear you. Yeah, there was some sort of breaking a little bit.
Okay.
I'm sure it's an internet connection.
Do I need to recover anything that we came across?
No, I think it's fine.
Thank you.
Works, but the screen's clear, and people, if you have any question, people will send them to you. Don't worry.
That would be really appreciated. Thanks, Ibrahim. And with that, your manuscript is in the hands of the editor. And all the best. So the next step, the next step is the peer review process, and it's very, very important for you, especially for those who are in the early stage of their career, and especially also for graduate students, masters and PhD, to have a good understanding of the peer review process. That saves them time and that helps them make the most out of it. So what is the purpose of peer review? The objective of peer review is to improve your manuscript, is to improve its validity, its readability, and its usefulness to others. You need to make sure that your study is valid both ethically and technically before it is published, because once it is published, you cannot change it. Any change is going to be attached to it, and there's going to be a stamp on it. It's going to be a scar on the manuscript if you change it after being published. It's okay to do so. It's better than leaving a manuscript with the wrong tables or the wrong version of tables, the wrong version of figures. And believe me, that happened, and I've seen that myself from prominent researchers on prominent journals. So it happens. But if it happens, okay, address it. Be brave, address it. But it's better to avoid that before it happens. And the way to avoid that is to have someone review your paper and point out any ethical or technical flaws and provide some advice to you on how to address them. And that's exactly what the peer review process is designed for. The peer review process has 3 steps. Although we typically focus on the post, when we say peer review, most people think about the post-submission peer review only, which is the middle step. But actually, the process starts way earlier than that. So the first stage of peer review is the pre-submission peer review. And then you get another stage of peer review, which is the post-submission peer review by the journal. And then you get a third stage of peer review, which is post-publication peer review after the paper is already published. And all these stages are meant to make sure that anything published is, as we said previously, is valid, easy to read, and useful to others. We're going to take these steps one step at a time and share some thoughts about them. So for the pre-submission peer review, it could be technical or linguistic. It could be provided by co-author. In fact, it must be provided by co-authors. And also it could be provided by colleagues or publishing mentors who are like senior scientists that volunteer to assist you to achieve publication. And here there are a couple of things that we would like to cover. If you are sharing your manuscript with non-co-authors, you need to make sure that this is done officially, at least using an email sent from you to them with clear details on what you want them to do to make sure that you're preserving your intellectual property from the manuscript. You don't want to run into an issue with someone copying or taking some pieces of your work and going back and trying to track how they get it. You cannot prove it. So make sure that if you're sharing your manuscript with someone, the manuscript must be shared officially in a way that you can prove it if you need that later. And again, if you're going to acknowledge the contribution of non-co-authors, so make sure that they are fine with that, even if they are not co-authors. The other thing is the co-authors. The co-authorship is meant to aggregate efforts and to help the research achieve milestones that cannot be achieved with a single author. So make sure that every single co-author had the chance to contribute significantly and intellectually to the experimental design, how the research is conducted, maybe data analysis and interpretation, and also they are given a chance to contribute to the writing, or at least to the manuscript revision, and to make sure that they approve the final version before they are submitted, because this is one of the piece of submission pieces that you will need. Some journals require a written and signed consent from the co-authors. The other thing too is to make sure that the co-authors are in agreement on the authorship ranking or order on the manuscript, and these things should be resolved early on. You don't want to get people involved in your manuscript and then get them surprised at the last minute that their name is not in an order that they expect. For PhD students and master students, this is very important to inquire about early on in your research and in your journey in your lab. So it's okay to talk about your advisor about it. What are the authorship rules? What are the rules for the first author? What are the rules for the corresponding author? what are the rules for the senior author on the manuscript, and how people are gonna be ordered in between. Many labs differ in these cases, so try to discuss that, and when you agree with your supervisor about these details, try to send an email to your advisor summarizing what you understood, because you don't want to spend your entire PhD program with the impression that your name will be first on your manuscripts, and then at the end you end up with your advisor telling you that no, this is not what we agreed about. We agreed on a different thing, and you just misunderstood it. So it's good. And then if you misunderstood something and you state it back to your advisor will have the chance to correct it timely. So you have a solid agreement that you guys could refer back to. In some universities, as part of their research ethics course, they require one of their assignments is a meeting with your advisor to discuss these things. And actually, some universities provide a template for what questions you should discuss with your advisor, and you should answer those questions you should write your answers to those questions, and your advisor should write the answer to those questions, and you both have to sign it to make sure that you guys are starting on a solid ground with no conflict of interest. The next thing is we need to have a good understanding of the post-submission peer review types. So there is the double-blinded review, which is neither the author nor the reviewers know each other. Although, when describing infrastructure in material and methods, it might be inferred from the text, but at least officially it's not written there. And you should not submit a manuscript with your details, something that would reveal your personality up there. And you could work with the editor on that if you don't know how. But you don't want to submit to a journal that uses double-blinded review with your identity revealed as an author. The single-blinded review, which is your identity as an author is known to reviewers, but you don't know them. You don't know who reviewed your manuscript. And you will not know. The more transparent one is the transparent review, where you submit as single-blinded or maybe double-blinded, but eventually the anonymous reviews will be published alongside your manuscript. So the initial, your manuscript will be published, and alongside with it, you will people will see the contribution of reviewers through their reviews. And the last type is the open review. In this case, everybody knows everything. So your identity is clear, and the reviewer's identity is clear. The initial submission and the reviews and the final submission, everything is available to everyone to see. So people not only can see the final published paper, but they could also see the reviews, the previous reviews, and they know who said what and how you responded to it, which is the ultimate, openness situation. Each one of those is fine as long as it is appropriately used. the most important thing is you know what is the type of review in the journal, and you make sure that you comply with it. The post-submission review had some sort of standardized structure, and by understanding this structure, you have a better chance of navigating the process. So usually you are the author and you submit a high quality research paper, or at least that's what people expect. And then the paper goes to the editor, to the editor's desk, let's say, where it sits there until it is its turn to be evaluated. Then the editor takes a decision on whether to reject this manuscript in what we call the disk rejection, or maybe pass it to someone who's very familiar with the topic. In this case, they call them subject area editors or associate editors who are very familiar with the area of research. If the editor can't make a decision on it, in this case, the associate editor or the subject area editor can do the same thing. Probably can accept it, or say maybe respond back to the editor and say, okay, I don't think this matches, and there should be some brief conversation between them about that, and then it will be rejected. Sometimes you get a rejection with suggestion to submit somewhere else, especially if the study is good, but it doesn't match the scope. And most referrals are going to be probably within the same. Yes, Brahim.
Shayna said she cannot hear anything. Are we clear or not? Let's wait and see. There is only...
Can you hear me, Brahim?
I can hear you perfectly, but I'm not sure if everyone...
Okay.
Put in the messages, can you hear everything? Yes or no?
Yeah, let's see if we...
Yes, it's clear. Okay, go ahead. I think if there are 2 or 3, so it's not from you. Carry on.
Okay, good. In this case, most referrals are going to be within, are expected to be within the same platform or the same publishing entity. So if your manuscript is being referred to a journal that you don't like, you don't have to go with that. You could choose for yourself. Some journals, some publishing platforms, especially with big journals, might also have managing editors just to assist different editors on achieving their role, and they act as a bridge between editors and the journal to facilitate things. The editors and editors and associate editors and subject area editors are the ones that probably you will meet at conferences, because they are the ones that are closer to the authors, and are the ones that I encourage people to submit and gather information about where the research topic is moving. If the manuscript is good and if they like it, then the subject area editor or the associate editor probably will gonna find the best reviewers to review your manuscript. Probably the editor gonna contact many people to find some who would accept it. And in some cases, like the situation we are in now, probably this stage is gonna take longer than usual. So if you have a manuscript that has been submitted and still not has not been moved into under review status yet, probably that's normal in today's situation. Once each journal has its minimum, for how many reviewers should take a look at the manuscript, and once they have that minimum met, then the manuscript are going to be under review. It's going to spend there some time. Different journals put different time windows for review. And then once they receive the report is meant to help the editor in the first place to decide on whether to accept or reject or ask for further edits from you. And then the detailed responses or the detailed response is meant to help you to address what exactly they see as flaws in your manuscript. And it should be detailed. It should not be some general statements that just put you down. So it should be meant to help. It should be meant to help in a language that is not offending to you. So if you are a PhD student or a master student that is receiving a review in a harsh language or an offending language, feel free to bring that up to the editor's attention, because this is not supposed to be the case. Your role is to comply with the comments as much as you can, or provide explanation when you can't do so. And then the manuscript is going to be in this stage until it is satisfactory and it is accepted. It could take 1 round, 2 rounds. The decisions could be accepted as it is, which is a rare situation. Accepted with minor edits, with a request from reviewers to see the manuscript again, or by passing that to the editor to say, okay, we're good with it. It has some minor things that could be addressed, and you, the editor, could decide on that. Or say, no, these are minor things, but I, as a reviewer, I want to see it appropriately implemented, so I want to see it again. Or maybe major edits. In this case, the editor could, when you resubmit, the editor could pass it to the same reviewers if he or they elect to, or it could be passed to a different set of reviewers. And we will come into a case that covers this situation in a few minutes. And once it is accepted, then it goes to production just to assure quality and sub-editing, also to help with figure placing and all the technical stuff that you as an author might not be expected to do on the manuscript, even if you submitted the manuscript with the journal's format. So with production, it's in their hand. They are technical assistants who will assure that everything coming out of the journal have the same look and up to the same quality standards. And then once the paper is published, it's a permanent record. You cannot change it. Changes are going to be attached to it. And most publishing platforms will allow you to check the published papers for further changes. So it's usually a button that you click on, and it says, yes, this is the most updated version or the only version of this paper, or no, this paper has been corrected, and here is the old version, and here is the new version. And in this case, you don't want to reach this point with some minor things that are gonna significantly affect you, like your name, your affiliation. You don't want to pass this point with someone who deserves the authorship and you didn't put their name there. Someone who deserves acknowledgement and you didn't put their names there. So here, during this stage, you're gonna probably provided a proof version to a final proof version to look at. This is your final chance to make changes. After that, it's part of the permanent record. With this understanding, when you receive emails, you should be better situated to respond to them. Again, the reviewers, the review process and editorship are voluntary work. So those people are not paid. They are just scientists like you, your colleagues in different places of the world who are voluntarily helping you to improve the validity, the readability, and usefulness of your research. So appreciate their comments. Take them as improvement opportunities, not as criticisms. And if you feel like they are not appropriately addressed, or the comments are being addressed using harsh language, or uh, like an offending language, please bring that up to the editor's attention. And with each comment, it's good to start with thank you. So by thanking people, not only you are doing the right thing, but also you're gaining more, because it is well known that people give more when they feel appreciated. So they deserve it, and you also deserve more. So make sure that you always start with thank you for your comment, thank you for your suggestion, thank you for your correction. All these things, or even if it is a harsh criticism, you also start with thank you. You don't use a different tone in your response, and make sure that you read your comments twice or thrice before you submit them, because sometimes the written language has a different tone than the spoken language. And when you see something written, you don't see people's face, you don't see their body language, you don't know their tone. So make sure that you always use the right word choice that makes sure that people are not offended, or are not do not feel that their effort is not appreciated. You need to respond to comments objectively. So if there is a suggestion that you cannot agree with, don't just say no, I don't agree. You have to provide supportive evidence to your stance why you don't agree. Use references, use additional references if needed. And if you are using additional references that the reviewers had to see before agreeing with you, probably you need to add those to the manuscript itself. In the review, the reviewer's response to you is made of two major parts. General comments at the beginning, you need to respond to those, and then in a different color, and after that comes detailed responses with line numbers and detailed suggestions. Those it's better to put those in a table with the reviewer's comment, their original line numbers, your response, and the new line number. Your response and the new line number should be in a different color. And again, in each one of those, make sure that you show your appreciation of the comment. And if you feel like it is harsh, bring that to the editor's attention. So you need to make sure that you are providing your detailed response in the appropriate format. So if the editor asks you to provide some detailed response in a table, you should put that in a table. If the editor wants to see your manuscript again with track changes active on the file, you need to do so. So make sure that you respond appropriately to what you are instructed to do, because by helping the reviewers, you're helping yourself, making sure that your manuscript is going to go through it. And in this on this point, I have a story that I would like to share with you. I had a friend of mine who had a manuscript, who received the comments on one of his manuscripts, and in the editor's email, he mentioned that the 3 reviews are attached to the email. But when my colleague downloaded the attachments, he found only 2 reviews. So he asked me, you know what? I don't know if this is an innocent error or there are like 3 reviews, but the editor forgot to attach the 3rd one. And he said, you know, I already applied all the comments from the 2 reviewers. I'm thinking of submitting it back. He was under pressure to get promoted, to get that manuscript published, and because he was approaching promotion. And I told him, you know what, it's not going to hurt you to ask. It's just a simple email that the editor is not going to take more than 5 minutes to respond to when he gets a time. So he said, well, I don't know. I will need to revisit my response anyway, so I'm going to shoot the editor an email. And he did. The editors timely responded to his email, and it was a very surprising reward. The editor was very appreciative of the author's response, because he could have been in a bad situation if the manuscript made it back with the comments of one of the reviewers left out, because that would have required some explanations from him why a reviewer's comments are not shared with the author. The other thing too is the reviews and the comments from the 3rd reviewer were the most useful ones to the author. It was very thorough. It was very detailed, with some very good suggestions for improving the manuscript. And believe me, it made it very, very good. It made a very good impact on the quality of the manuscript itself. And it sent a very good message to the editor too, that you as an author are going to take every step to make sure that the manuscript is going to be in its best shape when published. So it was a very rewarding one. That applies to all the comments. So if you see a reference to a comment in the general comments and you don't see it in the detailed response, you know, make sure you ask about it. You mentioned that there are some concerns on the methodology, but when I looked at your comments on the methodology section, I didn't see what you referred to. Could you please clarify that? So it's okay to get back to the editors, to the editor, and to inquire about any missing piece of information that you don't have. It's gonna make your work better, and it's gonna send a very good message about you as a scientist. The other thing too is, don't fight with reviewers or editors. So don't fight with them. This is a no-winner fight. No one is gonna win. No one is gonna win in this case. Reviewers are working voluntarily, so they are donating their time to review your paper. If they are using some harsh language, you should not fight back. You just politely bring that up to the editor's attention, and still respond to the reviews and send it back to the editor, and the editor will have the chance to evaluate the situation in case he didn't pay enough attention when he looked at the reviews previously. Don't fight with reviewers. If you have some criticisms of the reviewing process, bring it up to the editor's attention, and please don't refer to the reviewer's personality. Refer to the reviewer's comments, refer to the reviewer's suggestions, refer to the reviewer's edits. don't refer to the reviewer as a person as much as it is possible for you. And I have also a story to share with you here, also from a colleague of mine. They sent their manuscript to a very good journal, Q1 in their field, and they really wanted that manuscript to be published there. After several months, they received major edits requested. They went through with some additional work to be conducted. So they did, and they complied with the reviewers' comments. They sent the manuscript back to the editor. In this case, looks like the initial reviewers were busy, or they didn't accept to review again. As you know, there are deadlines for responding to the editors, and if you are reviewing something else, you may not be able to review the same paper twice. So looks like the paper was sent to a different set of reviewers. It took a couple of months before the manuscript made it back. And in this case, there were some significant criticisms for what the initial reviewers were suggesting, which was exactly what the reviewers, what the authors implemented. And but it came with a rejection this time. It came back with a rejection, so they don't even have a chance to respond with technical details that will make it all the way back to reviewers. So they decided they will respond to the editor. But instead of being objective, they were mad. They were mad. It took them like 8, I believe, months to get that rejection after 2 rounds of reviews. And they wrote some very harsh email to the editor, and they used some very inappropriate language. The editor responded back, and it was a fight. And now colleagues are fighting. You're making bad impressions with editors. Editors are making bad impressions with the authors, and no one won. There were no winners out of this fight at all. And because my colleague was an early career scientist, he didn't have much to do to stop the fight. It was a clash of giants, and no winners there. He was the first author, and he couldn't control the situation, and they had to go to a different journal. The best route of action there is, if you don't comply, if you don't agree with the decision, bring it up politely. Say, okay, we thank you for your decision. However, we don't agree because of this and that, and bring that back to the editor's attention, and make sure that the editor understood that, okay, this is a criticism of the previous reviewers' recommendations. Yes, we agree with them, and here is why. Or no, we think that there might be a win-win situation. And this is what we're going to cover in this last story. Try to put yourself in the editor's situation. The editor wants to publish good research, and he has the reviewers' comments coming from people who are the most aware people of your area of research. So he has to take that into consideration heavily. They are the judges. Yes, he's the final judge in this case, but they are the ones that provides evidence to him. So bring that up politely, object politely, but don't fight. The last case was from a colleague of mine too. He also was approaching promotion, and he was desperate to have his last manuscript submitted, to have the required number of manuscripts needed for promotion application. He had a manuscript that was frozen in a journal for like nearly 8 months. So he sent an email. He received the response that they are having difficulties identifying, finding reviewers in this area of research, and they are actively looking since he submitted the manuscript. He was working on other manuscripts. He said, okay, instead of withdrawing it, I'm gonna give them some more time. 10 months, he sent another email. He received the same message, and he decided to do the same thing again. And then around a whole year from the initial submission, he sent them back the same reminder, and the editor sent him a very important email. He said, we thank you, the editor said, we thank you for your patience. We approached around 40 colleagues to provide review to your manuscript. Only one agreed. It looks like this area of research is rare. That's why we cannot find reviewers. I know you are under pressure to get this manuscript submitted for your promotion. It is okay with us if you would like to withdraw it and submit it somewhere else. And my colleague called me and we had a discussion about it. And he said, well, I don't know. It has been a long time, and I brought to the editor's attention the time pressure that I am under, and here is the email I'm receiving from him. And he was very mad, and he had already prepared an email, and his discussion with me, from which I felt like he already decided to punch the editor in the face, and the question was where in the face to punch. So it wasn't like how polite should I be? It was no, I'm just gonna punch him in the face. He wasted my time, and I tell him, you know what? Let's give it some thoughts. What are we gonna win, and what are we gonna lose, and what the editor are gonna win, and what the editor is gonna lose. If we agreed that if he withdraw the manuscript, it will sit on another editor's table for a long period of time, and then gonna be the editor is gonna pass through the same hurdle again, and it's gonna be the same problem. We're not gaining, we're losing. The other thing too is the editor also is not gonna win. It's gonna be a lose situation. We will lose. The editor is gonna lose. After that much of effort, the manuscript is gonna probably published somewhere else. So we thought that how could we turn this situation into a win-win situation? And here the understanding of the peer review process helped a lot. We came up with a plan that would make that a win-win situation. So we suggested to the editor that given that this research area is rare, And given that he has already a first review, which looks like promising, otherwise the manuscript would have been rejected, with the editor's testimony that this area of research is rare and the research paper itself is good, we suggested to the editor that the associate editor or the subject area editor could serve as a second reviewer, and leaving the final decision to the editor-in-chief to decide. In this case, the associate editor is someone who is really close in the research area to the manuscript. That's why it was assigned to that person. And this is something that the editor cannot deny. He cannot say, no, he's not, he cannot say that. Otherwise, why, if it is not in his, or close in his, to his area of research, why did you assign it to him or her? And it was very welcomed by the editor. And we told him, okay, think about this, see if this works for you and for us. Your journal is the best vehicle for our manuscript to be published. That's why we published it there, and that's why we are eager to get it published in your journal. Let's give this plan a shot, and if it doesn't work with you, please recommend another journal to be submitted to. Later in that day, the editor responded that the manuscript has been moved to under review, which means probably that he accepted the plan. A few days later, we got minor edits requested. It was not much. My colleague did it and resubmitted, and few days later, my phone, someone called me on my phone. It was like 1:30 a.m. and I looked, it was him. He's my neighbor, so I was worried about his family. Are you guys okay? He said, yes, but the manuscript is accepted for publication. And I couldn't wait to the morning to tell you that. So in this case, it was a win-win situation for everyone. Fighting is easy, but it's costly. So don't fight. Think win-win, and make sure that everybody is gaining and winning from the process. So with that, we probably covered most of the advices that I might have to navigate the peer review process. And now, congratulations, we made it to the last step in the journey, which is delivering impact. And when we think about delivering impact, we need to revisit why we initially wanted to publish. What were our motivations? What do we need to accomplish? And for those who were with us from the first session, we talked about the requirements for dissertation. We talked about the quality assurance of your written papers and how well your scientific writing is. We talked about the fulfillment of funding agencies. And we talked about how it is important to inform the public, especially with publicly funded projects. We talked about prominence, increasing the impact factor, increasing the H-index, publishing in high impact factor journals. We talked about delivering information to people through platforms that focuses more on the quality of the research rather than focusing on publishing in high quality and high impact factor journal. And we talked about the flaws of the impact factor. And we talked about how CABI is doing some good effort in this regard, making sure that they're delivering the research, the research to those who needs it, based upon the research quality, not only not only the impact factor of the journal. We also talked about how we should have the intention of informing people. We have access to science, we have access to information, but there are people that don't have it. They cannot afford it. It's not available in their sphere, and how we have responsibilities to deliver our information to those people, and how we are fortunate to write in a second language and to understand it and to get the information from its sources and to be able to judge papers based on its merits, and that's not available to regular people, to everyday people, and how we should take one extra step to make it available to people in the languages. And we also talk about how CABI is doing a good job by providing information and publication in more than 40 languages. The last thing is we need to have a wider reach. Some people even can't read, but probably they can watch videos. So maybe if you make a small video about the main findings of your recent study, share it with family members, neighbors, people in your field, that would be great. Tweet about your publications, putting them in layman terms, so people, non-specialized people, or even non-educated people could understand it. Facebook posts, most people have Facebook accounts. Celebrate your publication on Facebook, in your scientific sphere, LinkedIn, academia, Google Scholar accounts, and all the platforms. I know I'm missing some of those. All the scientific platforms, Frontiers, all the scientific platforms that you could use to spread the words about your research, you should use them. And eventually, one of the key ways of marketing our research findings and delivering those impacts is a scientific journalism. And in this regard, SciDev.net is one of the best platforms that could be used to do so. SciDev is an independent platform. They write scientific articles. They write journal articles covering scientific topics. They have different sections for different parts of the world. They write in the local languages. They make videos. And they have a very wide outreach, and I believe Mr. Ibrahim might have some numbers that he might be able to share with us, and he might also share some points about SciDev, as he kindly did at the beginning, in case some guys didn't join us right at the beginning. So with this, you make sure that your research is delivered to all those who needs it, even those who have limited access to English as the publishing language, or even those who can't read, even in their own language. And again, those who cannot understand scientific terms, you could just simplify it and put it in for them in a simple language that they could understand. With that, we made it to the end of our journey. I hope that was helpful to some of you. And please, if you have any suggestions for improvement, any advices for content that were not covered here, and please feel free to share them with me in the comments or shoot me an email. It has been a pleasure, and I'll leave the platform to Mr. Ibrahim to share any demos he would like to, or share any comments or advices with all of us. Thank you guys so much. I'll be around to answer your questions. And Mr. Ibrahim, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Said. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance. It's very useful. It's very encouraging to see you all here to listen to CABI and to this lovely presentation by Dr. Said.
Thank you.
So there are a few things I would like to clarify now. So we have, as I said at the beginning, we have finished the first series. So we're going to have another series next week. It's going to be over 3 weeks, and we're going to go through what we have been through in the last 3 sessions. So we're going to have another series with 3 sessions again. So please do pass the message to everyone who hasn't attended before. It's a nice opportunity to have these 3 sessions. Now, the certificates. I do understand that all of you do need the certificates. So people have been writing their email here and share your events with me. Yeah, hang on. So CNC. Yeah, so I've got some people from Morocco as well, which is great. So my question to you, has anyone here registered? Has anyone registered to attend? Obviously is here, but has anyone here with us today hasn't registered with the event? So everyone has been writing his email and his name. So if you have registered for the session event, you will get your certificate. So who hasn't registered? I can see 3 people. So Zaidi, Nauris, FB, Afra, yeah. All right, so I have 5 people, they haven't registered, 6. So those people who hasn't registered, they need to send me their names, and I need to know them, and their email address. So their full name and their email address. Okay. It's quite a few. Okay. All right. The CNC. Can you please send me your email? And I will send you all the details. Or we have a person is in Morocco that will be able to email you all about the sessions. The CNC. Someone is called CNC, is based in Morocco. Right, the people who are just sending their emails and their names, please do write, if you haven't registered, do write your email and full name like you've been writing into the chat room. And I will take your emails, your names, and we'll prepare your certificate. And then we will cross-check it, of course, with your registration. Okay. The recordings are ready and available on the YouTube channel of CABI. So you will be able to navigate through CABI and you could find them.
Ibrahim, there is a question about those who couldn't attend the first session. Would you recommend them signing up for the next one? And
yes. Who has missed the first session? he should sign up for next Tuesday. I think it's the 9th. Same time, the 9th.
I checked it. It's sold out, Brahim. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I checked it and it is sold out. So I don't know if you wanna share a link with them so they could go directly to Zoom.
No. I will share the link right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Give me a second. So the 9th, here we go. Because some people don't turn up. So if it's fully, it's fully, they should like 900 or 300 should have registered. And this makes me wonder because some people do register and don't turn up. So it's not fair to give them certificates. So next week, we're going to start asking people to put all their emails. Here we go. So this is the session of next week, and next week we'll give you the session of the following week. So can you all please put your emails and names here, and I'm going to cross and match with the one we have. So the people who are registered and they didn't turn up, they will not get certificate. Only the people who has attended will get certificate. So everyone, please put your name, full name, surname, and your email address.
I have a question, Brahim, on the chat that I might cover in a few seconds, if you would like.
Yeah.
One of our colleagues said that they sent their manuscript in mid-March this year, and they didn't receive a response, and it was with editor for a whole month. And then they emailed the publisher to report the problem. And then they quickly received a negative, non-constructive report on the manuscript. Then they declined to submit again, to resubmit, and they submit to another journal. I have a couple of advices here. The first thing is, these days, expect delays in responses. So don't lose a good journal that you would like to publish in by not being patient. People are stressed, and reviewers are are stressed too, and editors are too. So it probably will be wise to expect more delays and to give them more time. The other thing too is it is good to communicate with the editor first before we talk, before we email the publisher as if we are complaining about the editor not doing his or her job. Again, this is we need to treat editors and reviewers nicely. They are volunteers, and this is especially now. This is a time of crisis. We need to. We all are going to be colleagues for the rest of our lives, whether we choose that or not. And it's good to gain friends, not to make enemies. So this is my advice. I apologize if you wrote your question or comment in French. My French is not better than my Chinese, so I may not be able to address that immediately. Thanks, Brahim.
Thank you, Dr. Said. Okay, so has everyone finished writing your email and your, we don't need your address. You just need your email and your full name that we need to put it on your certificate. For the people who has registered, and also now please write your email. We will be cross-checking, meaning we check if people have registered and the people attended, because some people, for example, we have over 200 registration, but now we are receiving only about 90, 91 people. So it's not fair for people to get certificates and they haven't attended, and they're going to do this checking from this week and the next sessions as well. Okay, great. Many thanks for your time today. Thanks, Dr. Said. Next week, so the people who hasn't attended the second session, please come next week. We'll do another very quick, brief CABI presentation. Then we will go via also CABI platform again. People are sending the only name. We need the address as well, please. Email address. So I'll leave it for about 5 minutes. So until 12:35, until I will get all your emails in. I will copy them in. And then hopefully we'll try to work on the certificates. It's really time consuming. Hopefully for this first 3 sessions, you get them by the end of next week. Okay?
Ibrahim?
No.
Would it be okay if we send a link to a form to get some feedback from participants when we send them the certificates?
Yeah, we can do that. We'll discuss it later, Doctor.
Okay, thank you so much.